Hi, I'm Alex Howard, and welcome to this week's episode of In Therapy, real-life therapy sessions as they happen. On this week's episode, we're going to be exploring feelings of loneliness and opening to difficult emotions. Stay tuned till the end for my top tip on how loneliness can be used as a gateway to a deeper connection with ourselves. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, click the bell icon for notifications as new episodes are released, and follow my other social channels for daily inspiration and support. In this week's episode, we catch up with David, who approached In Therapy to get help with depression. Although therapy has been making real positive changes in David's life, he has recently had a health scare that has been making him feel emotionally up and down and frustrated with his situation.
So David,
Hiya.
It's been a while since you and I sat here on these sofas.
Yeah, in the flesh, yeah.
I think the last time that we were in person together, I think it was the end of last year, right? It was in December.
It was December, yeah.
6 months ago.
Yeah.
Wow. What's happened?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah. So last time we spoke, you'd had quite a tough weekend.
Yeah.
And then you went to Scotland and things felt a bit easier again.
Yeah.
But how are you now? Have things stayed settled or
Not really.
Not?
Not really. They've been up and down. But, I mean, the some of the health concerns I had have been sort of laid to rest. So that's, I don't have cancer. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's great.
And like anything else, it's a learning experience, But I mean, that was something that had been preying on my mind for months, and I've still got certain problems that we don't know what's the reason for it, but at least it's nothing immediately fatal. So I just need to figure that out.
How's your just general state of mind and emotions been in the last few weeks, you think?
Yeah, my mood's just been really up and down, and
what have the ups looked like and what have the downs looked like? Like what's been the kind of felt experience of those sort of peaks and troughs?
I mean, the ups have just felt sort of relatively normal. It's been. I mean, the best way of sort of illustrating it is I went out on Sunday. I don't like going out on Sundays anyway, but But I was meeting a friend and I hadn't seen him since probably September. And we had a really nice time sitting sort of outside, and it was quite hot, and we had a few pints, and then we had Sunday lunch, and and it just felt really good. It was just a really nice, normal event. It was like all was right with the world. And then later on that night, I couldn't sleep, and my leg was hurting me, and it was just like I then spiraled and fell into a big black hole, and
What was the feeling of being in the black hole? Because I remember when we spoke the last couple of times, you sort of mentioned this sort of black hole type place. Mm-hmm. I'm curious as to what it feels like, what happens, what the felt experience of it is.
It's just kind of desolate. It's just sort of like, it sometimes feels like it's hard to get a breath, but it also just feels like the wind's whistling through you. It's
my way of thinking about and understanding these kinds of emotional places is it's a 3-step piece, really. There's what are the steps that you go through to end up in that place? What are the thoughts? What are the habits? What are the experiences? When you're there, how are you with it? How do you support yourself with it? Do you let the feelings be there? And then how do you move yourself out of that place? And I think spending a little bit of time understanding each of those pieces, I think would be helpful, because we'd of course like you to go to those places less.
Yeah.
But when you're there, to feel more resourceful in terms of how to navigate it and to be able to get yourself out. So if we take each of those pieces separately, one of the things that I notice with you, and I think it's common for all of us, but one of the things is definitely overwhelm. When too many things build up that feel overwhelming, and there's a sort of point where it sort of becomes too much, and there's a collapse that happens.
Yeah.
I also remember last time, one of the things you were saying is that you're more likely to drink more when you're feeling overloaded. It's almost like a disconnection feeds disconnection. Like the more overloaded you feel, the more you choose habits and behaviors that almost perpetuate that cycle. What else do you notice? Like if you think back to some of the other examples of going into that depressive place, what are the things that tend to take you there?
I mean, it usually comes probably from a feeling of loneliness. You know, it's probably that kind of kicks it off and spirals it off.
When those things are on your mind and you're worrying in that way, how much are you sharing of that and talking about that with others? Be that friends, be that family, because it strikes
you.
No.
I mean, some of it. I like I said before, I've got close friends. I think I've got quite a good support network. But I did talk about things on Friday night where I was like, I kind of unloaded certain things to them, and they're people I've known for years, and they've had their own dances with mental health. But I did sort of think the next day, God, that wasn't really, I shouldn't have brought that up over, I shouldn't have been talking about that over dinner,
Why?
It felt kind of rude.
Do you think that it actually was, or do you think that's your inner critic?
That's my inner critic,
putting you back in your box for expressing how you felt.
Yeah, and also it was like, I texted my friend and said, look, I'm really sorry, that probably wasn't the right thing to talk about over dinner. She was like, fine, it's fine.
Right, so the response actually was that, because I think often when someone opens up in a vulnerable way, maybe it's just my preference, but in a situation like that, everyone feels more connected actually, and it deepens the experience because you're actually talking about something that's real as opposed to just sort of the chitter chatter, which is sort of is unsatisfying because we don't actually feel connected to the people that we're with. So is there a difference between that experience where although there was some inner critic attack afterwards, there was a sense of, it sounds like, feeling a bit more connected. And Sunday, where there was stuff still on your mind that perhaps you felt less able in that instant to talk about what was happening?
I mean, I think the people who would understand best, they're people who have partners, they're people who have, other commitments. I don't feel good about phoning them up at 3 a.m. When they're in bed with their husband or when they're in bed with their girlfriend, or it's like, they're and the single friends I've got, very little help.
but you see, my thinking is that you don't want to get to the point where it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you feel that emotionally low. It's the more that we talk about it in day-to-day life, and the more that there's a general sense of feeling support, things are less likely to escalate to that point. As we talk about it, what comes to your mind about, again, going back to this sort of 3 stages, the going into it, managing it when you're in it, and the getting out of it? What could you do to support yourself differently, or what would help you go less frequently? Not that I think it's happening all the time, but it's happening. Like what?
I don't really know, but I know that the way I handle it's changed.
Okay, say more about that.
I definitely used to panic a lot more, whereas now I'm still going through that and still feeling that and still probably a bit panicky and breathless and whatever. But I'm using that kind of body scan things that you were teaching us and stuff, just to kind of sort of not take my mind off it, because you can't really take your mind off it, but just to kind of distract yourself slightly and just to kind of concentrate on breathing and concentrate on your toes and shit like that.
Yeah, you're regulating your nervous system, right?
So that's been making it feel less overwhelming when it happens.
Okay, that's good. I'm pleased to hear
so
that.
although it happens when I'm overwhelmed, it's the actual experience of it going through it feels less overwhelming and less doomy.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you're slipping into that place, What's your internal dialogue like? Like, what are the thoughts? What's the inner critic piece? Where's your focus? What's that state of mind like?
It's funny because the guy I actually saw on Sunday is one of the people who I feel I can confide in, and also confides in me. And we were talking about things like that, and he's also been reading a book about inner voices and stuff like that. And he used a phrase which I thought, that's exactly what it's like. It's like a chatter. It's like it's almost like you can't even pick out the one voice. So it's like when I've talked about the inner critic before, it's like, oh, you dick, why did you do that? Or, it's like there's just loads of that, to the extent that it becomes almost like white noise.
Yeah. So there's a state of mind that goes with this feeling, and it sounds like there's an escalating of that state of mind. That I think what happens, it's not quite the right phrase. I sometimes talk about there's more typical depression, then there's anxiety-induced depression, and this is not quite the right words, but it's almost like there's too much that happens, then there's a shutdown, which is different to just feeling flat and shut down. So if we can understand the overload, like the stuff that's escalating, then we don't get to the point where you just almost feel numb because it just feels too much to metabolize and process. Does that resonate with it? I do have a lot of periods where I feel sort of flat and numb. These periods are more like they feel painful. It's like, it's like it hurts. But you are right about it being, it's like, the kind of straw that breaks the camel's back. It's always like there's, 100 different things going on, and then there's just one thing. And it's often the most trivial thing, or it's often the thing that I'll kick off about, I'll be, not necessarily kick off, but it's often the thing that's the thing that I'll use to kind of burn down my life. So that's, when I'll say the wrong thing, or I'll say something hurtful to someone, or I'll get involved in a situation I shouldn't get involved in. Yeah.
And, and in actual fact, it's almost like the other things are too big to look at.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
When you say, you said something particularly interesting there. You said there's times you feel numb, but this actually isn't that. There's an activation of something, like it actually hurts.
Yeah.
Say more about what hurts, like what the location is, what the felt sense of it is.
Yeah, it's been like empty, but there's teeth. It's like something's gnawing at you. It's like something's gnawing at your insides.
Do you have a sense of what the something is that you're longing for?
Probably human connection, but
Yeah, goes back to what you were saying earlier, that sense of aloneness, right?
Yeah.
There's a longing and a craving almost. For holding, for love, for connection, for support.
And it's or even just some sort of catharsis, or just a 5-minute break. It's like, but. Well,
how does it feel to recognize that that's what's actually going on? Because that's quite different to seeing it as having feeling depressed or flat. Like it's quite a explicit naming of something. That there's a craving and there's a longing for connection.
I mean, it's not news to me. That it's something I've felt for a long, long time.
Yeah. But it's quite a visceral felt sense of that. It's not just a sort of, that's something that I want in my life. Like it's an embodied, visceral longing and wanting of something.
Yeah.
When that feeling is there, what do you tend to do in response to it? So there's the feeling, and then there's your relationship to the feeling. There's how you respond to the feeling. So when that feeling's there, how are you with it?
More and more, whenever it happens, I just kind of need to I just try and ride it out. I don't try and fight it anymore.
What I think would be, kind of going back again to these 3 stages, looking at the prevention stage, I'd be interested to get more awareness around, and I know we've talked about this a bit in the past, but more awareness around those patterns that lead to the sort of escalating and the overwhelm. Like, what are the things which you notice are repetitively on your mind? Repetitively causing a concern and anxiety. Because it's not just the things that are happening, it's also the way that we are thinking about the things that are happening, right? What are the ingredients to your thinking which leads to a state of overwhelm? Does that make sense as a question? I'm not saying you have the answer right now.
Yeah, I don't have the answer right now, but it makes sense as a question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think doing that as a journaling or thought diary exercise would be helpful. To put it in slightly different words, I'm not so focused on the content of the thinking, although the content, of course, is part of the story of what's happening. It's more the structure of the thinking. It's more the ways that the thinking is happening, right?
Right.
So you can be thinking about it with your nervous system calm, a kind of optimistic but pragmatic mindset to it, or thinking about the situation and the sort of future and all the things that might go wrong and warrant, like, so it's not the fact you're necessarily thinking about it. It's the type of thinking. Like, are they anxiety thoughts? Are they inner critic thoughts? Are they snowball thinking, like catastrophizing thoughts? Are they thoughts of overwhelm? And the more awareness we can have around those thoughts, the easier it then becomes to break some of those thought patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make it a bit clearer?
Yeah, but like I say, I don't know an answer right now. I need to sort of pay more attention.
You need to go do some homework, right? Does that feel achievable and doable as a piece of homework?
Yeah, I'm sure I'll have a wobble between now and the next time I see you.
That's almost guaranteed.
Yeah. So
I want to spend some more time exploring that emotional place. So they're kind of going back to these sort of three steps. There's the sort of overwhelm and the sort of path in. There's how you feel in those places, and there's how you get yourself out. How you feel in those places, as I say, I think part of it is learning to allow and make space for the emotions. And part of it is also to track it back to the wider frame of some of the bigger themes that we're looking at together. Is that part of you that longs for and craves to be in a relationship? And I think, given the great work you've done around the work side of things, I think it almost becomes the next frontier, in a sense, for us to perhaps have some more dialogue and conversation about. So it might be helpful between now and next time just to think a bit more about, maybe you don't need to do much preparation around it, but what feels like the blocks in the way in terms of relationship. Because I think it is a entirely appropriate human longing and need for emotional intimacy, for physical intimacy. That part of you, where you put it, it's almost the simplest part of you. You could also say it's almost the wisest part of you. It's the part of you that's almost the most truthful, saying, actually, there's something significant in my life that's missing, that there is longing for. There's heart-aching, wanting and longing for. And that is an entirely valid and reasonable longing.
Okay.
Any questions for today?
No, not at all.
Okay, good. So you've got your homework. Is it clear enough in terms of the homework? Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you, David.
Cool.
I hope you found this week's episode helpful. I think this experience of loneliness is something that we all experience at different chapters of our lives. I know that for me, when I was going through chronic fatigue syndrome in my later teens, I spent many years alone in my bedroom, missing out on the things in my life that at that time brought me joy, brought me pleasure. And some times in my 20s where, for different reasons, ended up spending a lot of time feeling isolated and disconnected, and a sense of absence of something that's missing. But here's one of the things I learned through that experience, and it's my top tip for this week's episode. When we open to those feelings of loneliness, and we allow ourselves to really feel the sense that something's missing, we're brave enough to allow ourselves to feel the deficiency, the sense that almost, as David talks about it, that wind's blowing through us. In that place of honesty and emotional connection to ourselves, it becomes a gateway to our relationship with ourselves. We can feel very close and intimate with our own hearts, with our own souls, by the very act of welcoming and allowing the feelings and the emotions that are there. And then the irony is, by allowing ourselves to feel those feelings of loneliness, we don't feel so alone, because we become more connected to ourselves, and we're always in relationship with ourselves. The question is, are we acting in almost in a way of self-abuse, of rejecting and dismissing our emotions? Or are we coming from a place of self-care and self-love and inviting and allowing those feelings and emotions to be there? So next time you feel a sense of something's missing, or feeling lonely, or feeling an absence, take a brave step, be open to it, surrender to it, and discover what happens in the process of doing that. If you'd be interested in asking me a question, or perhaps exploring a little issue that's been a challenge for you on your healing journey, we're launching a new series here on my YouTube channel. We're going to be doing some mini sessions that may be 7, 8, 10 minutes, maybe up to 20 minutes. There won't be a full therapeutic journey like we do with people in therapy, but a real opportunity to explore something together. And hopefully I can provide in that time some guidance, some wisdom and support for you. If you're interested in applying, these sessions will be filmed on Zoom. If you're interested in applying, please email intherapy@alexhoward.com. Next week, we'll be catching up with Katie. Katie's been battling with some different family dynamics. Here's a taste of what's coming up next week.
I'm terrified that I'm just going to end up being pariahed and I'm going to be scapegoated. And my mum said to me, I understand that fear, Katie, and I promise you I won't let that happen this time.
So it's lovely to hear your mum say that, but trust is something that is earned through someone's actions. And if she responds in the way that she says that she will, that could be a very powerful healing for you.